Once seated, Lily noticed someone else in the back. She turned to look. The lighting inside the car was dimmer than outside. The man beside her didn't say a word. His breathing was light, yet his presence was overwhelming. He lounged lazily in the seat, eyes closed, exuding an air of fatigue and indifference, as though he were unaware of his surroundings. The car started moving. Jonathan glanced into the rearview mirror, grinning mischievously. "Hey, Sanyan, wake up. Look who's here, your long-lost dream girl, Lily." It seemed that the noise startled him. Sanyan slightly turned his head and lazily opened his eyes. Their gazes met. An awkward tension filled the air. Sanyan didn't speak. He just quietly looked at her, his gaze sharp and clear, without any trace of grogginess from just waking up. His features were strikingly handsome, subtle monolids, upturned corners of his eyes, and an air of indifference toward everything around him. He carried an aura of defiance that made him stand out. At that moment, Lily had an inexplicable feeling that he was about to mock the term long-lost dream girl with unrestrained sarcasm. Vivian broke the silence. "You guys know each other?" Jonathan chimed in. "Yeah, we were high school classmates." Lily retracted her gaze. Just as she was about to change the topic to dispel the awkwardness, Vivian, oblivious to the tension, asked bluntly, "What does long-lost dream girl mean? Did your friend chase after Lily in high school but couldn't win her over?" Jonathan laughed heartily. Exactly. No wonder they were a couple. Lily realized there was no way to brush over the situation now. The unspoken pretense between her and Sanyan had been torn apart by Jonathan and Vivian's tactless remarks, leaving only a thin veil of civility. Not expecting Sanyan to smooth things over, Lily, keeping her composure, said, "Really? How come I, the person involved, have no memory of this?" "Jonathan, are you confusing things?" "How could I be confused?" "You too." Jonathan suddenly paused, realizing something was off. "Wait, are you guys still awkward about this after all these years?" "Come on, it's been ages. I just brought it up for fun." Vivian asked, "How long has it been since you last saw each other?" "I can't calculate that off the top of my head." "Lily, you only stayed at our school for a year, right?" Jonathan said. "I remember you transferred out in your first or second year of high school." Lily replied seriously, "I transferred out in the second semester of my second year." "Then it's been 7 or 8 years. Noticing Sanyan's silence, Jonathan added, "Sanyan, why are you so quiet? It's been 7 or 8 years. Don't tell me you're still holding a grudge over this?" Sanyan lowered his gaze, ignoring him. "Impressive." Jonathan clicked his tongue and started ranting. "Lily, don't mind him. You know what he's like, his pride sky high. He probably thinks you were blind for not liking him back then. But he doesn't realize how annoying he—" Vivian cut him off. "Hey, focus on driving. Don't talk about your friend like that." Jonathan bit back his words, furrowing his brows. He glanced at Vivian and sighed. "Driving requires focus," Vivian said, noticing his displeasure. She quickly added, "Don't be upset. I was just reminding you. Go ahead and finish what you were saying." Jonathan finally smiled. "I'm not mad. Thanks for the reminder, sweetheart." Before long, they arrived at the restaurant. Since they were already there, Lily couldn't bring herself to excuse herself and leave. Sanyan had remained silent the whole time, and leaving now would only make her seem overly sensitive about the past. She thought she could endure an hour-long meal. But to her surprise, the friend Vivian mentioned earlier wasn't just Sanyan. It was a group of people. They had booked a private room that was already filled with people. By convention, as Lily was brought by Vivian, she should have been seated next to her. However, since the remaining seats were paired together, Vivian abandoned her without hesitation and sat with Jonathan. Lily ended up sitting next to Sanyan. From the seating arrangement, it looked as though Lily had been brought by Sanyan instead. One of the men joked, "Sanyan, this is unfair. When did you suddenly get a girlfriend?" Jonathan clicked his tongue. "Don't talk nonsense. Do you think this guy deserves it? This is our old classmate, the famous school beauty from high school." "Of course, I remember. Lily, right?" "I was in the same class as your friend, Chloe," said a plump man, James seated next to Sanyan. He looked at Lily with a slightly shy smile. I've seen your photos with her on her social media. Lily smiled politely and nodded. The next moment, another man teased, Oh, look at that. James, why are you blushing? Sanyan didn't participate in their conversation. Even when his name was brought up repeatedly, he acted as though he didn't hear it. Hearing this comment, he finally stirred slightly, glancing at James. Jonathan added, He's always like this. Can't speak when he sees a pretty face. Feeling ignored, Vivian grew dissatisfied and interjected. What are you saying? Why are you complimenting someone else's looks in front of me? After a brief silence, Jonathan coaxed, Babe, how could you interpret it that way? Don't be jealous. The dishes were served very slowly at this restaurant. The men at the table chatted noisily, and the initial attention on Lily gradually faded. Lily relaxed slightly. She glanced at Sanyan, who was still playing on his phone, indifferent to everything around him. The longer she stayed, the more she felt out of place. After a while, Vivian kissed Jonathan's cheek, then walked over to Lily. She grabbed her wrist and said with a smile, Lily, come with me to the restroom. Lily stood up, picked up Vivian's bag from her chair, and followed her. In the restroom, Vivian touched up her lipstick and casually asked, You really rejected Sanyan back then? Lily didn't respond. Taking her silence as confirmation, Vivian exclaimed, You know that Barnier company over time? He co-owns it with my boyfriend and another guy. He's tall, handsome, and rich. How could you have turned him down? Vivian shook her head in disbelief. Your standards are way too high. But judging from his attitude tonight, it seems like he's over it. It's all in the past, Lily said gently as she checked her phone. By the way, Vivian, I'm sorry, but I have to leave. My editor needs me to submit something tonight. Could you let your friends know for me? Vivian was disappointed. It's just dinner. It won't take long. My editor's in a rush, Lily explained. I'm still on probation and can't afford to delay. Fine, Vivian pouted. Take care on your way back. Thanks, Vivian. See you tomorrow. After Vivian left, Lily sighed in relief. She washed her hands and left the restroom. Just as she stepped out, she ran into Sanyan, who had just exited the men's restroom. This time, he didn't treat her as invisible. Sanyan stopped in his tracks, his expression indifferent. He stood still, looking down at her from above. Lily felt a strange sense of déjà vu. It reminded her of their first encounter in the hallway of Overtime Bar. But this time, the circumstances were entirely different. It felt like a reset. From Sanyan's silence tonight, Lily felt no need to acknowledge their past encounters. She nodded slightly and greeted him politely as though this was their first meeting in years. Unbearable. Lily was momentarily speechless.